Deadly Israeli strike in the West Bank. All right, so a lot's happened. A lot has happened since I last started, or since I last talked about the war escalating over there. You know, for the past month, I've been going into how this kingdom that we're currently living in, America, the rule of Babylon, run by the Edomites, is the end of the world, and we're about to transition to the beginning of it that followeth, right? The kingdom of God with the Israelites in rulership. So that's what I've been talking about over the past month. I haven't been talking about what the war has been escalating over there. So let's talk about it. And this article is going to fill you in on some things like how Israel invaded Lebanon. So let's get into it, all right? It says, Tulkarm, the West Bank, October 4th. The ruins of a coffee shop in the West Bank of Tulkarm show the force of the airstrike on Thursday night that killed at least 18 people, including a senior local commander of the militant group Hamas, right? So, not just Hamas, the Israelis, they don't care. The Jewish people, they don't care if they only kill Hamas. They're not specifically targeting Hamas. I mean, they say they are, and you know, they strike where they believe Hamas is, but if they kill a whole bunch of innocent people, that's fine with them too. Like, they don't care about the Palestinians. They want all of them gone. All right. The strike in Tulkarm refugee camp, one of the most densely populated in the occupied West Bank, destroyed the ground floor shop entirely, leaving rescue workers picking through piles of concrete with the smell of blood still hanging in the air. You know, they got to be real poetic and descriptive in how they describe this. 2 holes in an upper level show where the missile penetrated the 3-story building before reaching the coffee shop, where a mechanical digger was clearing rubble on Friday, right? So they just hit the ground floor of this building, it toppled down, right? And it fell, and apparently it killed 18 people. The strike by the Israeli Air Force was the largest seen in the West Bank during operations that have escalated sharply since the time of the war in Gaza almost a year ago, right? Because it was October 7th a year ago when all this started popping off. And you see how much it's escalated in the past year. And one of the biggest since the second Intifada uprising 2 decades ago. We haven't heard this sound since 2002. Said Nimer Fayyad, owner of the cafe whose brother was killed in the strike. There is no safe place for the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves, right? So this, and the Israeli military know that this is what they're doing because they have funded Hamas in the past. They know that if they attack general Palestinian population, that will make the general Palestinian population join Hamas. That's how terrorism works, all right? Terrorists and terrorist groups are not created in a vacuum. And guess what? In their eyes, they don't look at themselves as terrorists. In their eyes, they look at themselves as freedom fighters. All right? So, and the U.S. did this as well. All right? That's how ISIS came about after the Iraq War. All right? That's how ISIS came about. All them Arab people who were left desolate, they said, hey, we need to band together and go after everybody who's coming against Islam. And so that's how ISIS/ISIL was formed. All right, it's the same thing with Hamas. Hamas was a political organization who took control over Gaza because of the, genocide that Israel is doing to Gaza, at least apartheid. All right. But anyway, the Israeli military said the strike killed Zahi Yasser Abd al-Razek Alfi, dang, what a name, head of the Hamas network in Tulkarm, a volatile city in the northern West Bank that has seen repeated clashes between the Israeli army and the Palestinian fighters. So what I want to do, I just want to jump to maps real quick. Let's go to Google Maps. Come on now, Google Maps. And I just want to show the region over there. See if we can find Tulkarm, because it's in the northern West Bank. That's key, and we'll talk about it a little later as far as and it's having trouble pulling it up because I got other tabs open. Okay, here we go. I like Google Maps specifically for this purpose because they show modern cities, and a lot of my maps are outdated when it comes to the region. Let's see if we can find Tolkien. Let's see. Not so much. It's probably a smaller city. Tamun, Yaban. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Tamun, yeah, I already said that. Let's zoom in a little more. Tagasir, Zababde. Okay, yeah, Tolkarm right here. It's actually on the border, supposedly, of the general state of Israel. All right. So technically, it's in the northern West Bank, but it's more western part of the West Bank. There it goes, right there, Tolkarm. All right. Yeah, way north of Jerusalem. There's Jerusalem all the way down here, so more like a little west of Samaria, if we're talking ancient maps, ancient cities. All right, but there it is right there. Let's zoom out a little bit, and we can still see Tolkarm right there. All right. East of Netanya, I don't really know what Netanya is. Tel Aviv is more like where Joppa was. Maybe Netanya is where Caesarea was. Well, I mean, Tel Aviv is more Caesarea as well. But anyway, let's get back to it. No, there's Caesarea is just north, right? Okay, so yeah, Netanya is just south of Caesarea. Tolkarm being just southeast of Caesarea. I'm using the names of ancient cities because that's what I'm more familiar with. Whenever you read the scriptures and stuff, they change the names of the cities so many times. But anyway, let's get back. All right. Same repeated clashes in Tolkarm. All right. So where are we at? Israeli military spokesperson Aviche Adre, okay, said the military had verified that at least 7 militants were killed in the attack, including Guy Radwan, a prominent commander from the Iranian-backed Islamic Jihad militant group. Right, so with the Israeli military, they said, hey, look, we're probably somewhere around 50%. That's good numbers for us. Militants versus civilian casualties, that's good numbers for us. You see how they think? This is crazy. If half the people that you kill were innocent people, that is not a good day. To them it is. They're like, hey, 50% of the people that we killed, around almost 50%. It's not even 50%. 7 is not even 50% of 18. They said at least 7 though, around 50%. That's a good day. It's insane. All right, he said the strike had been carried out as they met to plan a terrorist attack against the state of Israel in the immediate term. Sure they did. The United Nations Human Rights Office said the attack was part of a highly concerning pattern of unlawful use of force. Yeah, by Israel and West Bank. Obviously, this is what they've been doing for the past year now. And even more than that, since they've been over there pretty much. Because they've been funded by the American military. All right. There was no immediate confirmation from either faction, but Palestinian emergency services said at least 18 people had died in all, including a family of 5 in an apartment in the same building, right? Again, so they hit the bottom floor of the building, the whole building collapsed. It was just an innocent family up there just chilling, like eating Cheerios and watching whatever's on TV, and then boom, they did. The missiles penetrated their ceiling and the floor of their kitchen, leaving many of the cabinets incongruously intact. Amal Kairoush, whose daughter Saja was killed along with her husband, her 2 children and a brother, said she learned of their deaths from social media as word of the strike spread. Imagine that. You got to hear from like Facebook that your family died. I was calling Saja. I was calling her husband, my sons. I called my sister who lives near Saja. No one was answering, she said, so I started running toward her house in the camp. I didn't know how I was going to reach the camp. Right, so just running, trying to find them, and they're already gone. On Friday, as the funerals took place in Tulkarm, gunmen fired into the air as the bodies wrapped in red, green, and white Palestinian flags and the green banner of Hamas were carried through the streets. You see that right there? So now, it used to be before October 7th of last year, Hamas did not have a very high approval rating in Palestine. They wanted to get rid of Hamas just as much as the state of Israel did. But since the state of Israel has been retaliating so heavily against just general civilian populations, now all the Palestinians are saying, well, we got to do something. We can't join with the state of Israel. They don't want us. They want to kill us. We have to join with Hamas. And this is how they're creating more tension, more military action. This is how they're escalating. All right? It's all prophecy. All right? With the first anniversary approaching of Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel, the strike on Tulkarm underlined how widely the war has now spread, as well as fighting in Gaza, now largely reduced to rubble. Israeli troops are engaged in southern Lebanon, while parts of the West Bank, which has seen repeated arrest sweeps and raids, have in recent weeks come to resemble a full-blown war zone. Everything is a war zone over there. It's all popping off. Everything around Israel, and guess what? It's coming to the state of Israel as well. All right? So, yeah, they're popping off in Lebanon. It's popping off in Gaza. It's popping off in the West Bank. All that's just going to come further in. All right? Flashpoint cities in the northern West Bank like Tulkarm and Jenin have suffered repeated large-scale operations against Palestinian militant groups that are deeply embedded in the area's refugee camps. What happened in Tulkarm camp is just a thumbnail image of what is happening in the Gaza Strip, targeting civilians, women, elders, and children, also killing them in cold blood, said Faisal Salame, head of the Camp Refugee Council. More than 700 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank over the past year, according to health Palestinian authorities. Many of them armed fighters, but many also unarmed youths throwing stones during protests or civilian passersby. Right? Many of these people just innocent and don't want the state of Israel to be killing all their people, all their family. Right? But they don't care. They don't care. At the same time, dozens of Israeli soldiers and civilians have been killed in the West Bank and Israel by Palestinians. Most recently in Tel Aviv, where 7 people were killed by two Palestinians from the West Bank with an automatic weapon. You see that right there? So it is coming into the state of Israel. They can't cause all this war and expect nothing to happen to them. It is coming to them. All right? And again, that's prophecy. That's prophecy. Let's go ahead and talk about Iran real quick. Let's talk about Iran. All right. Iranian FM, I think it's foreign minister, pledges stronger retaliation if Israel strikes Iran. All right. Said in Beirut, Abbas Aragachi says Tehran supports an Israel-Lebanon ceasefire, contingent on a simultaneous truce in Gaza. Right, so Iran still wants peace. I'm explaining why that is shortly. This is Reuters and Al Jazeera. They're maybe a little biased towards the Arab countries, but that's better than how biased Western media is towards the state of Israel. All right. It says Iran's foreign minister says he supports efforts for a regional ceasefire with Israel, while also warning Tel Aviv that if it carries out an attack on Iran, Tehran will retaliate in a harsh way. Abbas Aragachi's remarks on Friday came as he was in Beirut for meetings with Lebanese officials. His visit took place 3 days after the latest in a series of rapidly escalating attacks that threatened to push the region closer to an all-out war. If the Israeli entity takes any step or measure against us, our retaliation will be stronger than the previous one, Aragachi said after meeting Lebanon's parliament speaker Nabi Berri. Right, so this he's talking about. He's about to say it right here. He said on Tuesday, Iran launched missiles at Israel. Iran said the attack was in retaliation for Israel's killings of senior Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iranian Islamic Revolution Guard Corps figures, the IRGC. This is the first I'm hearing of the IRGC specifically. I may have read it before, but this is the first time that I'm seeing it. Including Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and escalating attacks in Lebanon. Arghachi said his presence in the city under bombardment signals Iran's support for Hezbollah and expressed backing for a ceasefire in Lebanon, contingent on a simultaneous Israeli ceasefire in Gaza. All right, so, and this is what it's been like over the past year, that maybe not for the whole year, but since like January, February, the Iran-backed side has been looking and pushing for peace. The Israeli side is the one that's like, no, we ain't gonna stop till all Hamas is dead, which that's kind of like the war on terror. You can't win a war on terror because that's not a real entity. Hamas is a real entity, technically, but it's not organized. It's more just like any Palestinian freedom fighter they're gonna call Hamas, all right? We support the efforts for a ceasefire provided that first, the rights of the Lebanese people are respected and it is accepted by the Hezbollah resistance. And second, that it comes simultaneously with a ceasefire in Gaza, he said. And Arghachi said Iran's strikes on Israel were legitimate self-defense based on the UN Charter, right? It was legitimate retaliation because Israel has basically just been poking the bear when it comes to Iran. And yes, Iran does fund these areas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Hamas, right? These these surrounding entities who the Houthis not so much go to war with Israel because they're all the way down south in Yemen, but Hamas and Hezbollah, they do fund them, right? Because the Iranians are just looking at it as helping out these Palestinian and Lebanese people who the state of Israel has just been provoking, right? So Israel don't like that Iran funds these places. So they've been, striking Iranian officials and in Iran as well. Not only when they go to these other areas, but in Iran as well. All right, so it's only a matter of time before Iran retaliates. All right. Unlike Israel, which targets residential areas, we only attacked military centers. He said, we do not intend to continue the attacks unless the Zionist regime chooses to continue its attacks. All right. So, and in full coverage and being, balanced, because I know the way that I'm making it sound makes it seem like I'm all for these Arabs. No, I don't know. This is all to bring all the people, and I guess we'll talk about it for the controversy of Zion. This is all leading to World War III, Judgment Day, to call all nations who have come against the children of Israel over there to battle. That's what all this is about. So that's going to include the Edomites, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites. You can go down the list in Psalms 83. All right? All these people are going to be going to war over there, and I ain't on none of their side. I'm on God's side, and I made that clear the whole time. All right? But I can understand why Iran is doing the things that they're doing, and I'll show you here shortly why they are looking for peace. It's because they know the prophecy. They don't want it to escalate to World War III. All right? But Israel just keep poking the bear. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Israeli strikes on Lebanon, especially in the capital's densely populated southern suburbs, continued on Friday. I don't even know if I mentioned it, but Iran said they only attacked military centers. The state of Israel has military outposts like in civilian areas, so that's technically they're being honest, but in a shifty way like that. They were attacking densely populated areas that just so happen to have military outposts as well. So, or I guess you could say the other side, well, we just wanted to attack the military centers. It's not our fault that they had it in densely populated areas, But the state of Israel does just like target, like what we read about what they did in the West Bank. That was a coffee shop that they just, hit a missile strike and, killed a family that was living in an apartment upstairs, right? Like they don't care. Iran cares more than Israel, that's for sure. If you're looking at any kind of balance to this, Iran cares more about not escalating things than Israel does, for sure. All right. Let's see. A day earlier, yesterday, I suppose, Israeli forces pounded the area, with residents describing the explosions as the most violent attack so far in Beirut. So again, they're just escalating things in Lebanon as well. Not just escalating things in the West Bank and Gaza, escalating things in Lebanon as well. All the surrounding areas are getting it from the state of Israel right now. And at least 11 consecutive raids. At least 11 consecutive raids reportedly shook the ground and sent plumes of smoke into the skyline late on Thursday. Israel's army said the attack in Beirut had killed Mohammed Rashid Sakafi, Hezbollah's head of communications. There has been no confirmation from Hezbollah. I mean, probably when you take out a whole block of people, I mean, you're bound to hit one of your targets, right? Israel has carried out deadly air raids in Beirut and across the country for nearly 2 weeks, killing more than 1,900 people. Dang, so they got the death toll up over 40,000 in Gaza. Lord knows how many in the West Bank. Just one strike killed 18. And then in Lebanon, they've killed almost 2,000 at this point. Crazy. According to Lebanon's Ministry of Public Health, and forcing hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. And yeah, that is facts. They sent out. That's one thing that Israel does do. They will give a warning. They're just going to say, hey, we're going to hit this city at this time. Y'all need to leave. And people who can't leave or choose not to, they end up dying. Israel has also cut off the main border crossing between Lebanon and Syria for people fleeing Israeli bombardment, including vulnerable Syrian refugees. So, yeah. Because the border between Lebanon and Syria, I'm sure that there are probably some people, at least some people, who are like living in Syria and are Syrian by nationality, but they work in Lebanon for whatever reason. And they cross the border each day. And Israel just shut that down. They're like, nah, you ain't going back into Syria. So... But the mention of Syria is interesting here. Israel claimed it had targeted the crossing because it was allegedly being used by Hezbollah to transport military equipment across the border. Meanwhile, Israeli ground troops have been battling Hezbollah fighters in the south ever since they entered Lebanese territory on Tuesday. Israel has said 250 Hezbollah fighters have been killed in South Lebanon so far. So, 250 out of 2,000, that's like 10%, closer to 20%, let's say 20% of effective, right? 20% of your targets. 20% of the people you killed are your targets. That's crazy, right? So, hey, going back to the other article, 50%, hey, that's pretty good, right? That's what they're saying. Usually when we kill a whole bunch of people, it's only around 20% are actually who we're trying to kill. Like, that's how the state of Israel rolls. That's how they're moving. Because, again, their military is funded by the U.S. The U.S. has the largest military in the world. Any, like, leftover military equipment that the U.S. is not using anymore or just wants to get rid of for tax purposes or whatever, or funding purposes, I should say, they either give it to the police here in America or they send it to Israel. And then Ukraine can get the scraps, get the crumbs. But that's how it works, and that's what's going on here. Let's see. 250 Hezbollah fighters have been killed in South Lebanon so far. While there has been no confirmation from Hezbollah, the Lebanese group has also been claiming attacks and causing casualties among Israeli soldiers, right? So they're fighting back. It's not one-sided entirely, but one side is more heavily funded than, the Lebanese side. And in the Iranian capital, Tehran, the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, led Friday prayers and delivered a speech in which he praised the country's recent missile strike on Israel and said Iran was prepared to conduct more strikes if needed. Ali Gaddafi, the deputy commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, echoed the sentiments and warned that Iran would target all of Israel's energy sources, stations, refineries, and gas fields. Israel has 3 power plants and several refineries. We can attack them at the same time. Gaddafi was quoted by Iran's semi-official Mir news agency as saying on Friday. Okay, so yeah, I'll finish this out. A day earlier, Iran sent Israel's close ally, the United States, an indirect message via Qatar saying that any Israeli attack against Iran would meet an unconventional response that includes targeting Israeli infrastructure. An unconventional response because Iran, believe it or not, had pretty much kept a cool head in all this. All right, they've continued funding Hezbollah and Hamas and even the Houthis, but they haven't really went all out in war yet. And again, we'll get there here in a minute why that is. But they said, look, if y'all want war, we can give y'all war in an unconventional way. They said, look, we got battle plans and strategies ready to go. All right. Israeli officials, including the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have pledged to respond to Iran's two-way missile attack. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the army had more surprises in our arsenal. Right? This, from what I hear, Bibi Netanyahu, and Yoav Gallant, they the devil. From what I hear, they are the devil. This guy right here, Yoav Gallant, you don't hear about him as much as Bibi, but from what I hear, he's the devil. All right, maybe we'll go more into him at some point. Maybe if this name keeps showing up in the news, then yeah, we'll go in on him. But he said they got more surprises in their arsenal, according to Israeli media reports. He said that the military operation in Lebanon will continue until the removal of combat means. Right, so they said, look, we're trying to cripple them as a country. Until we do that, we're going to keep going. The new wave of strikes came after Israel ordered people to evacuate towns and villages in southern Lebanon. And remember how this went in Gaza. They said, oh, evacuate your northern towns. We're going to come in and attack the north. So then the people started headed south, right? So then Israel said, hey, evacuate the south because we coming down there too. And then everybody evacuated to Rafah. Then they said, hey, evacuate Rafah because we coming down there too. Right? So this is how they're trying to move in Lebanon as well. They're trying to take over the whole country. All right? Including, but also beyond an area that the United Nations declared a buffer zone after Israel and Hezbollah fought a month-long war in 2006. Right? So we've already established many times that the state of Israel does not care about what the UN says. They just don't care. All right? The UN will set guidelines, and the state of Israel will break them every time. So from there, I know I've kind of been building up to going in on why Iran does not want things to escalate. All right, and I went over it before, but we can touch on it again. And if you watch this. If you've been watching for a while, I'll put it like that. If you've been watching my streams for a while, then you're going to know these scriptures that I'm about to touch on. Most of them, at least. But because these scriptures talk about how war is going to escalate over there and it's all going to lead to World War III. All right, so these are, relevant. So, 2 Ezra 15. I'm going to start with 28. It says, behold, a horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east. Right? So it's talking about war escalating in the east. Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots. And the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Right? So that happened during the 2000s. Right? Major one was 9/11, right here in the States. But you also had Islamic terror attacks all over the world. Right? And then everybody would fear that these attacks were coming. All right? Everybody was afraid that, there would be another Islamic terror attack. That has already come to pass. All right? And it says that all they which hear them do what? Allahu Akbar. Like that's their war cry. All right? Everybody which heard that was afraid and trembled, right? Verse 30. Also the Carmanians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood. The Carmanians is the Iranians. All right, that's the Carmanians. And with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Now, some people have said that, this Assyrians here is actually talking about the state of Israel. I don't know if I'm fully on board with that. I think if it was talking about the land of Israel, it would have used a different word here than the land of the Assyrians. All right. But this escalation by the state of Israel in all these surrounding areas, notice how I mentioned Syria. Let's look at the maps here. Let's look at the land of the Assyrians. All right. Where is map of Assyria? Map of Assyria. Here we go. So let's look at this. I believe personally, when it's talking about the land of the Assyrians, it's not talking about the empire at its height in 671, the light green, where they went all the way into Egypt. I don't think it's talking about that. I think it's talking more about what you see here in 824 BC. All right, I think it's talking more about that. Hold on, let me be more clear. And I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again. But this is what it seems like to me. All right. This ain't, an angel told me this. I'm just saying this is what it reads like to me. All right. A portion of the land of the Assyrians is, as you can see, down here in what is modern day Iraq and Syria. All right. And let's just look at Google Maps just to confirm what that this is the land of the Assyrians that it's making reference to. It would be Iraq and Syria. So if the state of Israel they're already controlling the border, right, between Lebanon and Syria, right over here, right? So if Israel moves further into Syria and then Iran comes and wastes a portion of that land, that will be a fulfillment of that prophecy. I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm saying that's a possibility. All right. So that's what we're looking for. What we're looking for is the escalation. The escalation by Iran. That's why Iran does not want to go full out war with the state of Israel, because they know they would be fulfilling that prophecy and we would be closer to World War III. Right? And verse 31, it says, and then shall the dragons have the upper hand. So even though that would be helpful to Ishmael if Iran stepped in, Iran is still holding back because they know the scriptures. They're like, we don't want to give up the kingdom just yet. That's what it's all about. They don't want this world to end just yet. So they don't want to escalate that prophecy. All right? And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature. And if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them, then these shall be troubled, and keep silence through their power, and shall flee. All right? So if that is the Israelis, the Jewish, going into Syria, and Iran coming and making them retreat, that will be a fulfillment of that prophecy. All right? But certainly, the state of Israel escalating things to World War III is prophecy in its own right. All right? Let's get it. And like I said, this is all for the controversy of Zion. All right? So, where do I want to go next? Let's go Joel 3. Joel 3 talks about this great and terrible day of the Lord. Actually, before we get Joel 3, let me just prove what I'm saying as far as the controversy of Zion. All right? I believe that's Isaiah 34. Not Exodus 1. I believe it's Isaiah 34. Give me 1 second while I pull it up. Isaiah 34, is it 8? Yes. Isaiah 34 and verse 8. And I'll just read it here because this whole chapter in Isaiah 34 is talking about judgment coming on Edom. That's more about the fall of America. But I guess it could apply to the state of Israel as well. But verse 8, this is the point. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, right? The day of judgment, judgment day, and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. So that's what it's about. It's all about the controversy of Zion. All right? Zion is another name for Jerusalem. All right, keep that in mind. All right? Zion is another name for Jerusalem. In Joel 3, I'm going to start with verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. All right? Judah being the southern kingdom of Israel, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? The so-called blacks, all right? And Jerusalem was the capital of all of Israel. It was the capital. David established Jerusalem as the capital when he was ruling over all 12 tribes. So you had all 12 tribes in Jerusalem, all right? I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. We're going to get that in a minute as far as where is the valley of Jehoshaphat. And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. All right? So God said it plain right here as far as it's about the 12 tribes. That's what it's about. All right? It's the controversy of Zion. This is all coming based upon what they've done to God's people. All right? So-called blacks, Latinos, and American Indians here in the West, and the dispersed throughout the East as well. All right? God's people is in every nation. They have been scattered among the nations. It literally says that right here. And parted my land. And they split Jerusalem down the middle. All right? The Edomites, the Jewish, said we're gonna take this half, and the Ishmaelites, the Palestinians, the Arabs, they said we're gonna take this other half. All right? And they have cast lots for my people, right? They did auctions to sell people, and have given a boy for a harlot. They made a man a breeder, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink, and they raped the women. All right, yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? Those are Africans, and all the coast of Palestine. Those are the Arabs. All right, the Africans and the Arabs. What did they do? Will you render me a recompense? God said, are you trying to pay me back? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. He said, look, you trying to get me back, I'm going to get my get back. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. All right? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem. All right, so again, Judah, I just mentioned that, the so-called blacks, and the children of Jerusalem, that is a remnant of the 12 tribes, all 12 tribes, have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border, right? The Grecians are the Europeans, all right? So the Africans, this right here says the African Hamites and the Arabs sold the Israelites to the Europeans. Was that not in the transatlantic slave trade? Is that not what happened? See, people, well, if you're very uneducated, then you think that white people just went into Africa and just kidnapped people and took them on boats. That's not what happened at all. All right? If you're a little bit more educated but you don't know the Bible, you think, well, Africans sold other Africans. Which, yeah, Africans did sell other people that were in Africa. But what really happened is that the Arabs through the sub-Saharan slave trade and the Hamites in different conflicts and battles took the Israelites into captivity and sold them to the Europeans. This was all Bible prophecy. This was written around 400, 500 years before Christ. This was 2,000 years before this even took place. This is all Bible prophecy. It was all leading up to this. All right? And then it goes on to say that, hey, it's all going to be reversed. That, the Israelites going to be in rulership in the kingdom, and they're going to sell you. All right? But we're going to keep moving. Let's keep it moving to Revelation, talking about the Valley of Jehoshaphat. All right? Because we got to get to talking about the Feast of Tabernacles. So, Revelation 16. And y'all know, if y'all seen this, y'all know I always go to Revelation 16 because I like how it's said in Revelation 16. All right? Revelation 16, and I'll start with 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, right? So we're in the sixth vial right now, the sixth seal, the sixth trump. All right, Revelation describes it in different ways, but we are close to the end. All right, we're close to the day of judgment. He said he poured out his vial on the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up. All right, the Euphrates River has dried up. It has happened. It's not even like, oh, it is drying up. I mean, yeah, currently, still is, but it has dried up. All right, there are parts where it used to be flowing, you couldn't pass by swimming it. Now you can just walk across the dry land. All right, it has dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Those were the 3 unclean spirits. All right, the dragon being the devil, the beast being America, the governments that have been established by Esau, and the mouth of the false prophet is Christianity. All right, all of that was made to deceive. All right, the political systems, the secular world, and the even religious systems here in America were made to deceive. They weren't made to give you life. They were made to keep you in bondage, made to keep you asleep, made to bring you death. All right, anybody saying you ain't got to keep the commandments, anybody saying you ain't got to keep God's laws is trying to kill you. I'm telling you straight up, that's the only way to enter life, is through God's commandments and the faith of Christ. That's the only way. That's what Christ said. He said, if you want life, keep the commandments. All right, verse 14. For there are spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth into the kings of the earth and of the whole world. Right? So these miracles that it's talking about, it ain't talking about like you see somebody dead and somebody walks over and touches them on the head and now they're back to life. That's not what it's talking about. All right, it's talking about the miracles of modern science. All right? I was going to say, even just now, it ain't talking about raising people from the dead, but the Spirit stopped me because doctors have brought people back to life through the miracles of modern science. All right, that's what it's talking about. The miracles of modern science. Working miracles which go forth into the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Is that not what we read in Isaiah 34? For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, for the controversy of Zion. Behold, I come as a thief, right? Christ is coming like a thief in the night. You will not expect him, all right? You will not be able to say, oh, I can mark on my calendar when he's coming back. You won't be able to do that. Anybody who says that is a liar, all right? And the truth is not in him. The scripture said he's coming unexpectedly. All right, it says, blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, right? So let's go to the book of Isaiah 61 and verse 10. This is another precept for garments. I know I usually use Psalms 132. That's a good precept. But I also found this one in Isaiah 61 and verse 10. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be joyful in my God. For he hath clothed me with the garments of salvation. So that's what, when it's talking about the garments, it's talking about the garments of salvation. Blessed is he that keep his garments. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness. So blessed is he that watcheth and keep his righteousness and his salvation. That's what it's going into. All right? That keep his righteousness. All right? And our righteousness is if we keep the commandments. Moses said that. David said that in the Psalms, that all his commandments are righteousness. Lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Lest he walk in sin and they see you in your shame. All right? And you feel ashamed for your sin. And he gathered them into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. All right? So Armageddon is not a time. It's not a day. All right? Armageddon is a place. The Valley of Megiddo. All right? That's Armageddon. So let's, no, don't save. Let's go back to a map so I can just show you the Valley of Megiddo real quick. Armageddon means Valley of Megiddo. All right. As you can see on here, the plain of Megiddo, and it has the Valley of Jezreel. All right. Some maps you see will actually have the city of Megiddo, and it's right in that same area. All right. As you can see right here, that's Megiddo. That's Armageddon. And if you look on the map, on Google Maps, you will see it's not quite Lebanon, but it's north of the West Bank. All right. It's right here. And notice what city, I realized this whenever I was just checking out this map over here. I don't know why I didn't put two to two together, but it's Nazareth, where Christ was from. All right? It's that same area where Christ grew up. That's where it's all going to come to a head. In that same area where Christ grew up. All right? Just north of the West Bank. All right? Just south of Lebanon. Around Nazareth is where Megiddo is at. All right? So that's where it's all going to come to a head. And as it said in the articles, stuff's already popping off in Israel because they're attacking all the surrounding areas. It's going to make its way into Megiddo. It's going to make its way into Armageddon. All right? That's what it's all about. That's what it's all leading to. You got to be ready. You got to be watchful. Got to keep prayer. Got to keep your garments. All right? Which is the righteousness of God.